respond to your needs as they come up. The whole purpose of this is part of my service to our community. I'm a Nigerian, as you can tell by my name, and I value our community. The people I work with, I tell them that I am one of those who try to build community by bringing people together. So without much ado, let me see if I can share my PowerPoint slideshow. Let me know when you can see it. Can everyone see it?
Yes, it's up.
Okay, great. So I will, that's my agenda. We've done introductions already, or at least you guys have introduced yourselves a little bit. I'll talk about my personal story and the toolkits that I've used, and I'll mention something about the power of narrative in what we do, because human beings are storytellers and story receivers. Anyone here who's familiar with marketing will know that marketing is effective only when it connects emotionally, and that's because of the story. So I believe you have to use a story in life, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about networking, because for us to be successful, you cannot be successful by yourself. If you take one of the proverbs we used to use back in the day, if you take one stick, you can break it very easily. If you take a bunch of sticks together, you cannot break it easily. And that's the power of networking. In other words, using networking, 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 is 2 squared, or 2 factorial, for those of you who are numerate. And then I'll talk about charting your own course, because success looks different for everyone. Success means different things to everyone. When we were doing our introductions, we talked about what is one adjective that you believe defines you, and everybody had a different adjective. So there's no, in my mind and in my experience, there's no one way to be successful about this. So that said, I'll share some final tips and takeaways, and we'll close the day, okay? So this is a short version of my own personal story. And to introduce it, what I would actually like to do is to take you through my SWI. So I'm going to stop sharing the presentation, and I'll go to my SWI instead. So let me know when you can see this.
Yes, I can see it.
Right. So the reason I put this presentation together when I was in graduate school, and the reason I decided to use it is that, it gives like a 5-10 minute introduction, more than an elevator speech. I don't think an elevator speech is appropriate for this event. And the first thing I'd mention is that you'll see that I was in a cohort program, which meant that all of us in the class were working together, taking the same courses. And that actually is one of the secrets of success. Like I mentioned with networking, in a cohort program, you are automatically part of a network. And I would always recommend that if you're going into anywhere, try to build a cohort. In the PMI, I've tried to build a cohort around myself. And what is a cohort? A cohort is people who are like-minded working together for a common goal. So it's a team, basically. But anyway, having said that, my personal background, my ancestry is Yoruba from Western Nigeria. Most of you would be familiar with that. I was born in Lagos, and I've lived in many places. This part of the presentation shows you the places I've lived for more than a year. In Nigeria, I lived in Lagos, Kaduna, Benin, Sokoto and Kano. In Canada, I've lived only in Burlington, Ontario. I'm not talking about the places I've been to. In the US, I've lived all over the place. Galliano, Louisiana, in Valdosta, in the north, in Connecticut, in New York, in Buffalo. So that's it. My father was a broadcaster and a journalist, which I think gives me the sonorous voice. And my mother was a civil service administrator, which I think gives me the organization skills I have. You'll see pictures of my family. I have two adult children, and my wife and I have been married since 1988. That kind of tells you how old I am, but my daughter is a lecturer at the Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. She teaches courses in philosophy and dialectics and gender studies. My son is a cybersecurity analyst with the Federal Emergency Management Agency in Alabama. That's pictures of them. My first degree was in law. I was called to bar in Nigeria, worked with several groups of people, graduated with my my master's degree rather, in 2007. And this photo I'm very proud of, my cohort at my graduate school, and I got my degree, my doctorate degree in Niagara University. I like to put this picture here because I use this presentation not just for Nigerians, but also for people in North America. And it's a picture of downtown Lagos. Those of you who are familiar with Lagos will recognize that this was taken from Apapa, looking towards the edge of Lagos Island. And I'm just proud of it because it shows that Africa is not trees and safaris. There are huge cities in Africa. So I won't go much into this. I love education. I have lots of degrees and certifications gathered over the years in everything except perhaps medicine. And I put this as my functional and general skills, leadership, relationship management, interpersonal relations, financial analysis. And this doesn't cover everything I do, obviously. If you look at my LinkedIn, I laugh because people check me out on LinkedIn and it probably has 25% of the things I do. But in terms of career, I was an attorney, then a banker, and I've been working in IT basically since 2008. I was the regional director in UBA, and I've been an entrepreneur and running several companies now. Why did I do a doctorate? My mom was a single parent, and she sent me to live with my uncle and aunt. And my uncle quit his job and went to Columbia University in New York for a PhD. So from the time I was like in elementary school, I had known that, okay, PhD is something you must do. And, so I ended up doing it. I love academics. I'm going to talk about what I'm doing with the doctorate and explain how the various parts of my life fit together. I love working out, flowers, rainbows. One of these days I'll do skydiving, and I spend, I don't know, too much time on aircraft. So once in a while I take pictures from the windows of aircraft. And these two pictures here, I put them at the top. That's on the left with the guy with the blue turban. Those are my colleagues on the board of the Project Management Institute Lecture Chapter. And on the right, these are my colleagues in the board of the Burlington Public Library. Those are two places I serve as a leader in a formal sense, kind of. This pictures at the middle, that's the Temple of Ek. My religion is Ekankar, and that's me inside the sanctuary. And things I've learned, just keep on educating yourself. I'll show you a couple of things I'm doing in 2024 in terms of education. I believe that life is I believe in lifelong learning. because you cannot know everything. So when I talked about about the things that motivate me, I talked about service because I believe that service opens up your heart. If you have a cup that's full of water, you cannot add more water to the cup unless you give out some of the water that's already inside it. So that's my philosophy of life. I serve. And I believe that we're privileged. All of us on this call are privileged. And our very presence here means that to whom much is given, much is expected. So we need to recognize that privilege and live up to it in service. That's my philosophy anyway. So with that, let me pause and ask if anyone has any questions before I move back to the PowerPoint. And like I said, don't be shy. If you don't want to turn on your camera or whatever, you can put your questions in the chat and I'll have the host read out the chat. So let me go back to the PowerPoint.
Um, Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I heard you when you were introducing yourself. You said you've switched careers like almost sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 times. So I would like to know what are the challenges you faced when you were probably it's part of the PowerPoint, but just being curious.
I don't see them as challenges. I was interested in different things and I decided to pursue them. When I talk about career, I mean the avenues of making money. So when I was a kid, because I went to school very early, I got my bachelor's at the age of 19. And back then, you basically did what your parents told you to do. I had no interest in being a lawyer, but my mother said something to me that I've never forgotten. She said, you go and be a lawyer. And whenever there's a call for people who are lawyers to step this way, you step with them. She thought it would be a good degree to have, and I agree with her. Till today, I maintain my membership of the Nigerian Bar Association in good standing. I have a lot of friends and contacts back from then. And when I was working as a lawyer, and that's one of the other things I'll talk about later in the presentation. I looked at some of the boys I went to university with who studied, economics or accounting and engineering, and they were making more money than I. And I was like, screw you. I know you. You're not smarter than me. I have a big ego. And I was like, okay, if you can do it, I can do it too. And through the power of networking, I got an opportunity to become a banker. I joined a bank, Guarantee Trust Bank in Lagos at that time, one of the early staff. And that's the other thing I've done. I've maintained those relationships. I am still friends with many of the people I worked with back then. And I'll tell you how I got that job later when I get to the part about networking. And then but all the time, even when I was an attorney, when I was a banker in Nigeria, my first love was IT. And I'll tell you how I came about that. When I was an attorney, one of the machines in our office was an IBM Selectric typewriter. And, lawyers produce very long documents and agreements and all that. And my boss at that time, Chief Kolosho, he was someone who was very innovative about technology. And we had these IBM typewriters where we could program a whole agreement, like 30 pages into it. And when we needed to, because what lawyers do with agreements, I'll tell you a secret, they don't write afresh every time. They change, a couple of words. They change the name of the client address and things like that. And they make the agreement fit the purpose, right? So he programmed these templates into the typewriter, or he had them programmed. He wasn't typing himself. And so when we had the need to use the agreement, we just press one or two buttons and boom, the typewriter would spit it out in like, a few minutes. And that fascinated me. I was like, oh my God, how does this machine work? And that was my introduction to IT. And then when I moved to North America, I found that those skills I had, tinkering with technology and all that, were good enough that I could turn it into a career. And so that's been the story of how I switched careers. I wouldn't say I had challenges because, I was doing things I liked. I was doing things I was interested in. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So right now I run Veno Technologies, Compagno Technologies, Conspectech Incorporated, and ERP Advisors. I did mention my volunteer leadership at PMI Lakeshore, Ontario, and with the Public Library Board of the city where I live. If you look at LinkedIn, you'll see some of the stuff I do. It doesn't fit into one bucket. And the picture there is the front of my house. Someone put up a balloon when I was 60. So anyway, that's that. One of the things I do is that I maintain relationships. Like I said, I have in my phone 2,492 contacts at the time that I took this screenshot. And I call people once in a while. I don't call 2,000 people every day. I call them once in a while. I maintain relationships with them. I was in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and I took a picture of someone. The other pictures on the screen show how many email accounts I have. And so I took a picture of the guy, and he was standing beside me, and I was going to email him the picture. And on your phone, you have to select which account to use. And he was shocked. He was like, you have so many email accounts. And I'll come back to this point again in the portion about tools. And I said, yeah, they serve different purposes. I'm very organized, and I use those email accounts for different things. I get around. When I did this, in 2021, I traveled to 70 places, 2 countries. 2022, about 100 places, and last year, 108 places. I get around a lot. Someone was asking me on WhatsApp the other day that where are you? And so I looked at my Google timeline, because fortunately the technology nowadays, Google follows you everywhere you go. Everywhere you carry your phone, it records if you have location turned on. And in the my Google timeline, it showed that in the past 60 days from where that day, I'd been in Burlington for 2 nights. So just to say, not that it's boastful, but the ability to, the privilege rather, to do this and maintain all of the things I have to do and my relationships and all that is critical to my success. Of course, this is enabled because I don't have small children to worry about. And my wife is equally busy. She's even busier than I am, if I would say, because as those of you who are members of PMI Lakeshore may know, she's in another presentation right now, sharing her own expertise. So I believe in giving. Christians call it tithe, Muslims call it zakat, Hindus call it dana, because I've been given a lot. So I start with deontology, but I also consider consequences, and I layer deontology with my own ethical, humanistic approach. Deontology just means, it's a big word for rules, So I do what I love. And I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't really care whether, no, let me restate that. What I care about is what I get out of it. In other words, if someone asks me, to help them, I will do it if I can, and that's what I really like. I don't value many other things. I use a project management approach because I've been a project manager for a very long time. I think I first passed the project management exam in 2006. I also hold myself to a very high standard. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it well. I don't do things by half measures. And I believe that strategy comprises two things. One, what you will do, and the other is what you will not do. So, for instance, myself, I don't watch television. I don't watch movies. I don't play sports. I work out, like regularly for my health. But because I'm in and out of cars and airports and all that, I don't have time. Like if I'm sitting on an aircraft, it's a 2-hour flight or 5-hour flight. I do not turn on the movies because before I get on the plane, I plan what I'm going to do during that flight. It's I'm going to read a book, I'm going to listen to a podcast, I'm going to do something. I have something planned for that period. And so when I get off the plane, I check the box. One of my friends was telling me that he thought he was very organized before he met me, but I showed him that being organized, like sugar size to say it in the pidgin English. So, but like you all, I'm not perfect. I procrastinate a lot, which is actually why I'm organized, because I find that procrastination is not time management. It's an emotional response. In other words, you're procrastinating because you don't want to feel the pain of doing that thing. So I procrastinate a lot. I'm afraid of failure. And that's what drives me to be excellent at what I do. I don't want a situation where, I set out to do something and then somebody says, oh, you didn't do it well, or you like an exam, you didn't pass. How can, I must pass. I must do whatever I do very well. I have a bit of a perfectionist streak, and that makes it hard on people who work with me because, you bring the thing, you've spent a lot of time on it, and then I say it's not good enough, And so I jump to conclusions. Sometimes, somebody's talking to me, I'm not listening actively, I'm anticipating where they're going to land, and I jump there and explain to them what they're wanting to say without actually listening to them. And what this means is that sometimes I can be hard on my close ones. Because I'm in and out all the time, my kids, they don't, I wouldn't say they have to make an appointment to see me, but they don't have as much of my time, and even my wife. So what we try to do is to coordinate our travel and use our travel as mini vacations, because I can't take, 2, 3 weeks vacation and just go somewhere. So if I'm going to go on a trip for 2, 3, 4 days, I might tack on an extra day in front for sightseeing, and I try to go with my wife, or tack on an extra day at the back to do something, So that's the other thing. I have a sweet tooth. I love candy. I love anything sweet. So those are the mitigants that I show in yellow. And I deliberately chose yellow because it's a hard color to see. But I would say the takeaway from this is that you got to understand that you are a human. You can't be good in everything. You can't be perfect at everything. And forgive yourself for the things that you're not good at. So that would be my takeaway. So before I jump into the toolkit, does anybody have any questions? Anything I could clarify?
I am just amazed at the detail, like, all of the things you put down, like so much thinking I've gone into it. So really thankful for what you're sharing this with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. But it's easy to write because it's my story. I'm just telling you what I've done and what who I am. So that's really what it is. But anyway, let's talk about skills, because you must have some way of organizing all this stuff if you want to be a leader, if you want to be successful. Time management is one. You've got to be able to prioritize, schedule, avoid procrastination. You got to be able to make decisions in situations where you don't have all the data that you may want to have. got to use judgment in making those decisions. Have structured ways of analyzing the information and realize that at the point analysis stops and action starts. You have to be able to communicate. If you can't communicate, you can't build relationships. If you can't build relationships, you cannot be successful. But again, you have to know how to resolve conflicts. You have to know how to deal with people, because people are I'll say it for those of you who understand Yoruba, and then I'll translate it. Ènìyàn ni aṣọ mi. That means people are the clothes I wear. In other words, people are those who cover my nakedness. And I believe in that so strongly. That's why I have, 2,500 contacts, and I keep in touch with many of them, not all of them, but many of them. You have to be able to manage resources. Those of you who have done a bit of economics, you know that we live in a world of scarcity. What I mean by that is that things will never be enough. So if you look at someone like Dangote, he has more money than Nigeria, but if you ask him, here's an opportunity to make another 1 billion naira, he will agree with you and he will pursue it. But I have nothing against being rich. I'm not a billionaire by any means, but whatever you have, you must be able to manage it. If I go back to the Bible, the story of the talents, the story says that people were given talents, and one guy went and buried his own, another guy went and did something and blah, 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 not to reveal that I didn't go to divinity school, but the person who was rewarded was the person who multiplied their talents. And to be able to multiply your talent, you have to be able to manage your resources. You have to budget. You have to understand how to manage the little you have and how to utilize your strengths. Ask for help. I tell my son all the time, I said, don't try to be a hero. He said he wanted to come home and he couldn't get a ticket that he could afford. So he was like, okay, maybe I should drive. And I said, don't try it. You're not a good enough driver because of course he has seen me drive like that. He has seen me drive long, long distances. And I said, you don't have enough experience. Well, maybe I was afraid that him being alone in the car for a 12-hour drive would not be good. But what I'm trying to say is that ask for help. Don't try to be a master of everything. I ask people to help me. So one of the things I'll talk about later on in a little bit more detail, and those who work with me know this, I don't do anything by myself. I tell people what to do. I help them do it. I make sure they have the resources, and then I leave them and I ask for help. I'm not shy at all to say that I'm not an expert. You have to have emotional intelligence, even in the home, to be able to read what is not being said. Because in communication, and particularly for those of us who are Nigerians, I think many of us on this call are Nigerians, we use what is called a high context communication style. In other words, what is unsaid is actually more of the meaning than what's actually said. In fact, in some instances, what is said is actually the opposite of what is meant. And it is only through emotional intelligence, understanding, being self-aware, having empathy for the other person's point of view, that you can really navigate the world effectively. Leadership, what's leadership? It's wide enough to drive a truck through it. My personal definition of a leader is that a leader is a person who makes things better, because that, to me, encompasses everything a leader does, because the purpose of leadership is to make things better. It encompasses the concept of followership. You cannot be a leader if you don't have followers. So when you're making things better, who are you making things better for? Or what is the purpose that you're making things better for? That's the followership that comes into it. Leadership involves building trust. I mentioned delegation. I pride myself on being a good delegator. Although there's some other things that I could delegate, but I haven't gotten there yet. But you've got to be able to navigate conflict, because often we avoid conflict. We think that it's a bad thing, you know, but I distinguish two types of conflict. There's positive conflict and negative conflict. You've got to be able to recognize what conflicts are and how to deal with them. Let me stop and let's take questions or comments on this.
Sir, I have a question on budgeting. Do you know of any tool someone or maybe a new person who just wants to start budgeting? Do you know how the person can go about it, or is there any tool that can help that person to start?
That's a great question. I will recommend the University of YouTube. If you search on YouTube on virtually any topic under the sun, you will come up with 600 million videos that teach you about that topic. Of course, be discerning, use judgment about who to follow and all that. But there are a lot of resources on there in terms of, you know, how to start, what to do, and all that. In terms of tools as well, I recommend using a online tool or something that on your phone that will connect to your bank or allow you to download transactions from your bank and upload into the budgeting tool, and then categorize your spending. And then periodically go through and see what you're actually spending money on. Because my experience, and I used to do this for a very long time, get paid, but before the money comes, you already got like 1,600 things to do, and so the money is gone before you can do it, before you know it, and then you're scrambling to get the next money. But budgeting allows you to be disciplined in terms of say, okay, well, I want to spend X on this, I want to spend Y on this, and by reviewing it, having that plan in place, one, helps you focus your spending. Not that you won't overspend one category or another, but having a plan, which is really what a budget is, it's just a plan. You know, if you take a country's budget, you know, they're going to spend X on defense, Y on education, blah, blah, blah. It's just a plan. So having the plan helps you be structured. Number two, reviewing the plan regularly, budget versus actual, helps you see what your patterns are, helps you understand where your weaknesses are, and maybe you're overspending on a particular category. It helps you do that. In terms of the tools, I would say look for something that's low cost. If you have Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel and you're disciplined enough, you know, you can use those. They're free or close to free, or pay a little money and buy a budgeting software that's cloud-based and has a mobile app, or one that you resonates with you, and actually use it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Should I move on, or does anybody else have a question about these? I'll take that as a no. So tools help you organize, you know, but if you don't use it consistently, the tool is useless, really. It's like if you have a screwdriver in your tool drawer, and when it's time to use the screwdriver, you're using a hammer, you know, it won't be effective. So use your tools consistently. You must adopt the tool. When I was in graduate school, one of the tools I used was a reference manager, and it just made life so easy because it connects with the article I'm reading online, puts it in the software. I can categorize, I can add notes, I can tag it. And when I'm writing, it automatically formats the references. And for those of you who haven't gone to graduate school, you may not understand how much of a time saver this is. But I remember during my defense, one of the things my committee member said was that, oh, your references are so good. And I was like, yes, because I use a tool for managing it. But on the screen, I show you some of the tools I use. ClickUp it has a free version and a paid version. I use the free version and I use it for task management. Every morning, I check what it says is due, and it allows you to add time and dates to your tasks, so it keeps you on track. I use Evernote. Again, it has a free version and a paid version. And being the cheap guy I am, I use the free version. I use it for note taking. Evernote is great because when you're reading online, you find an article you like, it's one click and it saves the article, and you can then go back to it and add notes or whatever and export it as PDF or whatever. I use Busy and Rippling for managing my work because I have work customers and employees in different countries. So I need an online platform. Busy is for task management. So I can use it to assign tasks to people and keep track of what they're doing, keep track of where they are and all that. Rippling I use for expense management and for payroll. So HR, that's great for that. I call podcasts a tool because I use them all the time to learn. I'll listen to podcasts on current affairs. There's an election going on in the US, or election season, and in Canada too, politics. I'm interested in news and current affairs, So I listen to podcasts. I listen to podcasts on sales. I listen to podcasts on IT. I have a lot of podcasts I follow, and I make time to listen to them, even when I'm driving or I'm on an aircraft, that's what I do. So there are lots of other tools. I just pointed out some key ones that I recommend you do. And if you want to look at them later, it's clickup.com, evernote.com, and podcasts you can find on Apple, Android, anywhere you get your podcasts from. This I added because it's not my writing, but it goes with this topic, and I'll share this presentation with you guys. But calendars, being organized, having the ability to know what to do on any day. So I'll tell you one thing. People will call and say, oh, when can we meet? Are you free next week, Tuesday? And I never answer that question. What I do instead is that I send them to my booking page. I have a booking page that, just go and find a slot that works for you and will connect. Because if I tell you I'm going to be free on Saturday at noon, I don't know that. So whenever when I commit to something, I commit to it with a date and a time, and I put it in my calendar. And so having a calendar tool like that helps me not to become disorganized. Things to do is Evernote I mentioned, Mendeley, because I know a lot of us like advanced education, so we need a way to manage that stuff. Google Drive, Dropbox, and again, with all of these, it's not only being organized, it's using it. So I hired someone as an accountant recently, and I showed him how I organize the bank statements. So I'll point that out. Before I ever download anything online, a bank statement or an article or anything, I know where it's going to go because I've created folders to manage all my stuff. And on my browsers, I never allow the browser to download anything to the downloads folder. The browsers these days have a downloads folder because it just wastes time. If it downloads everything to the downloads folder, then you got to go and look for it there. Waste of time. No. I told the accountant, you need a top level folder with one folder for each bank. And within each bank, you need one folder for each year. And within each year, then you can store the statements because there are only 12 in a year. So you don't need to be more granular about organizing it like that. And then set the browser to not, so when you want to download something, it proposes a name and a location. Change the name of the document or thing you are downloading immediately. So not only are you putting it in the right place, you're naming it. I name my thing. So you don't have to think twice about, okay, what did I call this? How do I find this? You know, it just saves time if you organize yourself properly and use those tools. Okay. I talked about storytelling because you have to have a story. And actually, I would say you need multiple stories. Somebody like me, one story does not really capture everything that I am. I might have a PMI story, I have a IT story, I have an academic story, you know. But the point of stories is that they help you present yourself in the way that you want people to see you. They help you even now refine your own narrative to yourself, because if you haven't defined your narrative, you don't know where to go. It's like you put petrol inside the car. Well, you can drive the car any direction, but the narrative then says, okay, fine, this is the overarching goal. That means to get to that goal, I have to go in this direction. That's what narrative does. And for that, I actually have a short YouTube video that I would like to share if we have time, because I'm not looking at my time. Oh, I spent almost an hour. So you guys can watch the video later on, but it really tells you, think through in advance what the people you're dealing with want, what they want from you, and you paint a relatable picture. Really, that's what it is. You must have, so in my case, when we were starting, I showed you a picture of my life, who I am, my family and my work and all that. Of course, that's a picture, but think of movies. A movie that's 1 hour, 1.5 hours, it's actually, if you put all the raw footage together, it's probably 6 hours or 9 hours. You can't watch, nobody can watch a 9 hour movie. They'll split it into season 1, episode 1, season 3, episode 2, and each movie is an hour, something like that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you need multiple stories for each of the audiences that you want to address. I hope that makes sense. So in the interest of time, I won't play the videos here, but you can watch this video. And I believe in YouTube. I'm a graduate of the University of YouTube. The first thing, if I want to learn something new, I go to YouTube first and, find something on it. I don't really use it to watch reels. So let's talk about networking, because that is why I'm here today. I got invited to this through my network, and how you build your network. And this slide, I'll go into in a bit of detail, but the place I will start is LinkedIn, because it's like the professional network. People don't really advertise their friend's wedding or their daughter's naming ceremony on LinkedIn. They kind of use it for business and professional stuff. And so you need to know how to use it effectively. How do you make relationships with people? It's like a bank account. You must first deposit before you can withdraw. If you go to the bank and you haven't first deposited and you say you want to withdraw, they'll call the security people to remove you from the bank. So if you do it online, you might find the security agencies coming after you. So you've got to deposit. And that's actually what, one of the reasons rather that I serve, because service is a deposit. It's a deposit to life. It's a deposit to friendship. It's a deposit to relationships. So share on LinkedIn. Now, when you share, be deliberate about what you're sharing. When other people share things that you're interested in, write a comment on it, tag them, thank them. when you reach out to people on LinkedIn, I say this because, I'm on LinkedIn. A lot of our Nigerians are on LinkedIn. Don't ask me a question that requires me to go and do research for you. Do your own research. Ask me a specific question, and I'll be able to give you a specific answer to that question. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know, and we'll move on. Don't be very specific when you're reaching out to people, especially people that you don't know, people that you don't have a close relationship with. Be kind to them because they're busy. Share recommendations. If you see that, oh, this guy is interested in marketing or, polymers or something, whatever you're interested in, if you find something that's related to that area of common interest, share a link with the person and say, oh, I came across this. I thought you might be interested, or, things that help the person. So what I'm trying to say is that approach your relationship building in a service orientation. It's not really giving, it's not really taking, rather, it's giving. And I'll tell you a couple of things that have happened to me out of this. So if you are a lecturer like Adebayo, ask people to come and speak to your class, share whatever they know. If you have a blog, invite people to come and speak on your blog, or write an article for a podcast, recommend people that make mutually beneficial introductions to help them. You'll see that the consistent thing in all of this stuff is that you're serving. I call it serving. You might call it any other adjective you like. Compliment people. If they say something, I don't compliment a lot because, it can turn into a full-time job trying to keep up with all contacts and all. But if someone does something significant that I am interested in, if a person publishes an article or book, or they say something meaningful for me, then I will respond. Otherwise, I'll read it and move on. And then this is my pet peeve, the number 11. People reach out to me all the time to connect, and then they just use the default LinkedIn connection request. 99 times out of 100, I ignore them because I don't know you. Yes, you know from my name that I'm a Nigerian. We share that ancestry. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're reaching out to me for a connection request on LinkedIn, please personalize it. Tell me who you are. Tell me how I will benefit from connecting with you. Otherwise, just follow me. I don't post a lot, so maybe that's why people don't follow me. But if you just use, because what happens is that, and I don't want to say people are lazy, they don't know. They don't know how to use the tool effectively. So you're on LinkedIn, you see somebody's profile. Oh, this person looks interesting. I want to follow them or have a conversation with them. You just send them a friend. It's like sending a friend request on Facebook. If the person is busy, they're going to ignore you. Or if they're not kind, they're going to click the button on LinkedIn that says, I don't know this person. And if you gather a lot of that, LinkedIn will respond to you as if you're spamming them, and so when you reach out, say, oh, I met you at so place and I liked what you said, or, I attended this, or tell me something about yourself and why it is I should connect with you. Tell me something about, or ask me a question. Okay, I see from your posts or from your work that you're an expert in this area. I have this question. Don't ask me how God created the earth because I don't know. And I'm not interested in going to find out for you. If that's really what you want to know, go take that education by yourself. But ask me a question about what I know. Then I'll say, oh, okay, this person is interested. They've done their homework, and I'll be able to answer their question. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good. Sorry, I was putting on my phone. Okay, so let's talk about charting your own course, because you'll see that I've had a very unusual course, and I came to this partly by serendipity and partly by having coaches and mentors and sponsors. But you remember in the beginning, I said that this is something that looks different for everyone. Oh, before I do that, I was going to give you guys, because you came today, I was going to give you a gift. So permit me to stop sharing and send you something in the chat. Give me 1 second. If it looks like I'm bending over to look at my now I've got to find out how to. Okay, I've seen it. Just because you came and you gave up part of your day, I'm sending you a file. Please let me know when you get the file, because I want to talk about that briefly before we move on. Okay, thank you. That is a handout from a lecture I attended a couple of years ago. No, this was a webinar. And I think it's absolutely, it nails how to use LinkedIn. And, you know, use it for what it will. I didn't create it, but I recommend it. And I recommend the author or the company that's behind that presentation actually have a blog that I follow. And so I would recommend you do that as well. But I think there's a lot of value in that. Please don't share it beyond this circle of ours. That is a gift for you because you came today. I know there are many other people in this organization who were invited and didn't show up, so don't give it to them. So I'm going to ask the organizer to give out this deck because that's my own intellectual property. I feel comfortable giving it out, but I don't want to give out something beyond this group. That's just a gift for you guys, okay? And to be clear, if you share it on the world, I would not know, and I will not come to your house even if I know, but there you go. So talking about charting your own course. So I talked about having short-term and long-term goals. And again, on the University of YouTube, there's a lot of videos about goals and how to find your passion and whether you even need a passion and things like that, you know. But really, for me, it's about, okay, what is my long-term goal? What do I want to do long-term, and being clear about that. And there are tools that you can use to identify what those things are for you. And then, and this is probably trite, you have to break it down. So one of the tools I love to use in that regard is the flower petals exercise. And I'm only saying it, so take notes if you want to. It's in a book called What Color is Your Parachute by Richard Nelson Bowles. What color is your parachute? Every library has it. If you don't have access to a library where you are, go online. There are pirated versions of it everywhere. It's a famous book, millions of copies printed. I'm sure you can find it for free. I'm not suggesting you spend a lot of money on it, but that book contains a series of exercises, flower petals, that walks you through identifying the things that are important to you, the things that you like to do. It changed my life, and I've recommended it more times than I know. It's focused on career changing, but I think the principles that it proposes are actually universal. And so I recommend that you use that to create that roadmap. You know, I'm a project manager, so I'll talk about project management. Project management is a manufactured profession. I'm not saying it's not a real profession. It's a real profession. But when I say it's a manufacture profession, it's something that started 30 years ago. So if you compare project management to, for instance, engineering, the principles of engineering have been known since Galileo's time. You know, Archimedes, Newton, all these guys, did a lot of work to develop the principles of science and physics and mathematics that engineers use today. So there's a body of engineering knowledge that has lasted for centuries. You can go to Egypt and look at the pyramids, for instance. Those are marvels of engineering. So engineering is a profession that, talk about medicine, be in, I wouldn't say prehistoric times, but even 200 years ago, if you were sick, you had herbalists who knew about the value of herbs and what herbs could cure what diseases and all that. And then as we applied technology and science to it, we began to identify diseases and categorize them and all that. So if you're a doctor, you're part of a professional history that has a lot of knowledge based on it, and then there are specializations. There are different kinds of doctors. Someone is a doctor of optometry, so he's the one who gives me my glasses. Another person is a specialist on kidney and stuff like that. Same thing with engineers. You have petroleum engineers, you have chemical engineers, you have aeronautic engineering, and all. Project management is different. Project management is a body of knowledge that was created 30, 35 years ago, and it has grown because it has utility. A lot of projects fail, some succeed, others middling, they get canceled. But by and large, I think businesses and countries and people have recognized that this way of executing tasks is effective. And why does that matter? It matters because many of us, and I'm speaking to especially those who want to japa or who are already in North America, we recognize that project management is in demand. And so we want to go into project management. And I argue that it's great. I've been in project management for a long time, but you must layer project management on top of whatever it is you already have. In other words, nobody is going to hire you as a project manager for a nuclear plant unless you have some expertise in nuclear engineering or nuclear science and everything. You cannot go and work on a construction project for a multi-level parking lot unless you have some skills in structural engineering or, strength of materials or stuff like that. And so what it also means is that there are a lot of people doing project management who don't describe themselves as project managers, who don't, they may not even know that project management is a profession. So what I advocate is that, yes, study project management. If you want to be like me, do the exam and pass. Yeah, fine. But you have to understand that it's aligned with what else you know. Is it finance? So are you an accountant? How can you marry project management with that? How can you use the project management approach to produce financial reports? How can you help other accountants be more effective through a project management approach? Same thing with law. Are you what do you call it? These guys who manage complex litigation. That's a project. Can you develop an expertise in applying that to that field? In other words, don't do like I see too many people do. They come in, they go and get some kind of, and I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying don't stop there. That's what I'm really saying. They go and get a project management certification or course or something, and then they look for a job as a project manager and they can't find it. Why? Because you haven't taken the step of applying it to what you do or connecting it to your background or showing a track record that you know how to apply this set of skills, this body of knowledge to a practical problem. There's no such thing as a pure project manager. You have, unless maybe you are a professor of project management, so, but even that, I would argue, you are a professor. You're not a project. So project management is a practical thing. So then how do you find a job in that field? It starts from where you are. Are you an economist or a banker, or are you willing to change professions like I did, and then use the network from that to find a PM role in that field? I hope that makes sense. I'm somebody, if you look at my profile and the things I've said in the last 1.5 hours, you can see that I embrace uncertainty. I was not sure that I would be where I am when I was taking a leap in those professions, or those careers. And I took the leap. I was adaptable. Let me tell you about the careers, because I said I have 4. One is as an attorney. The other is as a banker. I learned financial management. I know enough about accounting to boast to accounting and finance, because they're 2 different things. I know enough about accounting and finance to boast to people who have master's degrees in those fields and have a conversation with them. Or strategy. Strategy in the business sense is really looking at business problems from an economics lens or perspective. I know enough to be dangerous in those areas as well. So the third one I did was working in ERP. ERP is enterprise resource planning. I'm an expert in it. I have Oracle certification, SAP certification. I have experience with NetSuite, Microsoft Dynamics. I've been doing it for 20 years. It's paid for a lot of the toys I have. The fourth one now, I'm switching into being an entrepreneur. In other words, taking all the stuff that has come before and leveraging it. And now I'm learning marketing. I'm learning how to be effective at talking to prospects, identifying prospects and converting them into customers and making them open their wallets. I'm using my network to introduce myself anew to people and say, look, this is what I do now. I think you have a need for this, and this is the benefit that I will give to you. So that probably will not be my last career. I will be successful at it, and then I'll go and do something else. So I'm different from the people who have spent 25 years in one career. But I would also say I'm like them, because each of the careers I take, I deepen myself in them. I mentioned earlier that I'm still a certified legal practitioner in Nigeria. I never bothered to take the legal certification in any of the other places I lived because it wasn't necessary. I know enough about law to be able to navigate my way through any contract. One of the things I laughed about in my entrepreneurship, the company I'm with, is selling a legal toolkit, all the contracts you need and all that, $3,500. I just laughed at them and I moved on, and I went and downloaded this thing because I know enough to actually do it myself. I don't need to pay $3,500 to any lawyer, So what I'm trying to say is you can use what you've built up and apply it to the next thing. And then I seek feedback. And in this, I would add that I prioritize coaching. I'm coachable. I seek out coaches and I listen and I implement what they tell me, because I don't have a mirror, to see myself and see what I'm doing wrong. And, if I describe my challenges to a coach, they can tell me, okay, think about it this way. And coaching is actually what has led me to the career changes and the leadership opportunities I've had, because you won't be surprised if I say, well, my name is Akindayomi Odede, and most people in Ontario where I live, they cannot pronounce that name. And the reality is they see you as a foreigner, they see you, you know, they see me and ask, oh, your English is very good. When did you come to Canada? I just laugh. I say, well, I used to get angry, but now I take it as a compliment. Okay, you speak with a phone accent, but I know 120,000 words in English. I use words like deontology and I know what they mean. So telling me that my English is good, okay, that's because you don't know me, but it was through coaching that I was able to understand what what was important to me and why I don't get upset when people say things like that to me. It's through coaching, for instance, that I realized that, okay, I needed to express my leadership in other ways than looking for a career in a big multinational or Fortune 500 company and become a CEO and all that. Not that I can't play those politics, but I don't want to. It's through coaching and the feedback I get from my coaches that I am able to do what I do today and enjoy it. And a big thing I do is I reflect. So I mentioned earlier that when I travel by air, I never turn on the television. I never, the little movie screen that's in front of you, I just ignore it. And sometimes I'll go on the aircraft with a notebook and a pen, and I want to use that 1 hour flight for reflection. I think about, okay, what is it that I've done, and chart things that are important to me and what I'm going to do next. And then rinse and repeat. That is why I've had 4 careers, because I take the things that I've learned in one place and I apply it to the other place, and I keep applying it and adapting it and working with it. And really, to me, that is what has made me happy. That's what has made me who I am. That's what drives me, and I recommend that, not because if you want to be the topmost lawyer in Nigeria and be an SAN or whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not suggesting that this is the only way to be successful. I'm actually saying that what success means to each of us is different. And the sooner you identify or begin to identify what success means to you, the faster you can go after it, the faster you can develop that. I also mentioned that I would tell you a little bit about how I've used networking to be successful. So I mentioned that I am president of the Lakeshore chapter of PMI. Actually, I joined that chapter in 2006, and I kept on paying my dues. I know a lot of people because, I like people. In those days, we actually used to go to a physical place and have a meeting and all that. So I knew them and I kept in touch with them. And after the pandemic, I decided, okay, let me become more active again. And people that I known, they knew me, they knew I was an IT expert. And they said, look, we need you to come and help us do this IT thing and all that. I said, okay, fine. And I helped them. I served as their IT director on paid role. And then in 2024, they elected me president. That was it. I have lived in Burlington since 2001. And, because I go in the community, I participate and all that, people I know who were in the library said, we have a vacancy coming up on the library board. Would you like to apply? So I went to their website, I saw the application, and I applied. They interviewed me and they offered me the role. These are unpaid roles. I'm not making any money from it, but I am making connections. I have access to other city leaders. If I need something from the mayor, I can get it because, I'm in that circle, which comes back to what my mother was saying. before I went to study law, that if you're a lawyer, when they call on lawyers, you follow them. So if you are a leader in your community, when they call on leaders in the community, you self go show. And that's really one of the things I enjoy. It's not as if I was completely just lucky. It's that I had deposited into those bank accounts for a long time. I have a doctorate degree, and one of the things I'm doing now, I'm starting to write articles and get published, and I want to, not this present tense, I want to get an opportunity to teach part-time. I don't want to do it full-time for now. And I'd applied a couple of universities, and they basically just said, go away, I was sitting in my house. Someone called me and said, listen, we have this position starting in January. Would you like to apply? And I said, oh, well, I don't know if I have to. I started hesitating. The person started trying to persuade me. I said, look, I will introduce you to the dean. And this and this and this. And one thing led to another. I'm starting that part-time thing in January. That's because the person who called me knows me and knows what I've done, what I can do, has a high opinion of me, and I've done things for them as well. I've shown them over time that, this is the value I can bring. So they're very comfortable to say, oh, they're comfortable to say to their colleagues and their boss that, oh, I know the perfect person for this role. And that is a blessing. You can't pay money for that. You can only get it by giving and showing up and being the person who helps, and not, I won't say without expectation of reward, but it's almost like that, because I find in my role as a leader, there are many people who volunteer, but they're coming in with their own agenda. They want to volunteer so that they'll network with other people. They want to volunteer so that they'll add this to their resume. And I have no problem with those. Those are great goals, because you must have a goal for volunteering. It takes time. It takes effort. Sometimes you spend your own money to do that, to do those things. So you must have a goal in mind. But I would suggest that the overriding goal for me is service. I do it because I love it. I help. I want to give. And then I find that in some ways, life just comes back at me when I'm not expecting and gives back to me, So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, I mentioned earlier that I would tell you some of the things I've done. These are this year, 2024, trainings and certifications I've done. I did OSHA. OSHA is the United States Office of Safety and Health Administration. They have a lot of power in terms of regulating work sites and industries and all that. And I took their 30-hour course and passed the exam, got certified. I learned how to operate a aerial machine. So if you go to a construction site, you'll see people who operate these jacks, machines that lift them, platforms that lift them up to the upper level, and they can then do things that they can't reach physically. I took a course on that, passed the exam, I got certified in it. This you can't see very well. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 courses I took and got certified. Extron is a leader in the AV industry. What am I trying to say? I'm saying that even though I have a doctorate degree, even though I'm busy with all of these things, I still make time to learn the things I'm interested in and get. And why? Let me tell you why I did this. I've always wanted to go into real estate. I've always wanted to buy homes and refurbish them and sell them. But I'm not planning to become a certified electrician. I'm not planning to become a certified roofer or, plumber. But you better, if that is your goal, you better know enough about that industry. You better know enough about construction to be able to have a conversation with the experts, and that's why I'm doing these, because I'm laying the foundation now in 2024 for what I'm going to do in 2025 and 2026. So obviously you can tell that, I'm strategic about it and I'm focused. I don't want to get to 2025 and I have an opportunity to buy a couple of dilapidated homes and then learn by trial and error, because I don't know I don't know how to tell whether the electrician is fooling me or the plumber is doing something. So I'm taking those trainings now to prepare myself for the things I want to do, because I still have goals. I'm already prepared to lecture. So the one I'm starting in January, I'll pull it together like I pulled this presentation together. Not that it's not work, not that it's easy, but it's easier for me than it would be for someone who hasn't got that background. And so that's why I'm doing these construction-related certifications. You understand that the things you do must have a purpose. Because if you're not focused, then how do you build a narrative? How do you tie all the things that you're doing together? So I do many, many things, but each of them is deliberate. Each of them is intentional, So here are some resources that I want to share with you. Hellman is the guy that did that LinkedIn article I shared, and I follow their blog. They're great. Someone like me who does so many, many, many things, how do you prioritize? How do you know which one to follow? How do you know which? Because, I tell people, I say, look, you don't have bad options. In other words, all of you on this call, you're all educated, you're all articulate, you're all, you're not ignorant. I would say you're middle to upper middle class, or maybe even you're a wealthy person. I don't know. But all of you have options. Now, all the options are good, but it doesn't mean that all the options have equal utility. Some options have more utility than others. So how do you decide between these 5 things I want to do, which of them I should do first? And Beverly Rye has a prioritizing grid that is very useful for determining, placing multiple options and determining which one you should do. I recommend it. If you don't know how to use Google, go and learn it today. Start by learning the Google search operator so you don't waste time searching for things online. If you don't know about AI, you must be living under a rock. AI is the sexy thing that's going on now. So you must learn it. You must figure out how to use it. You must figure out how it can make life easy for you. You must figure out how to be an expert in it. And in fact, I would suggest that if you can spell AI, you will get a job. Put AI on your resume, people will call you and interview you. So please go and learn AI. Subscribe to AI newsletters, subscribe to, all of them have free versions. I'm not somebody who likes to go and spend a lot of money unless I need to be an expert in that area or whatever. But, I start with the free version. So whether it's Gemini, Copilot, Open ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gamma, there are hundreds of them. People are coming out with them every day. Get yourself into that language, get yourself into that space, because that is the future. I would also say, in terms of artificial intelligence, it's not intelligent at all. It's not intelligent, it's not conscious, it's not sentient. What it does is, for those of you who have a bit of numeric background, it's extremely good at regression. It's extremely good at parsing great amounts of information, which is what the training does, and organizing it and being able to use decision trees to identify what the next word will be in a sequence. So that's not intelligence. That's faster. It can do it faster than a human being could. But to me, that's not intelligence. But I don't want to get into a philosophical argument about it. I want to say that it is a tool, just as any of the other tools I mentioned earlier, that you should master, because that is where the world is going. It can make life much easier and much more efficient for you. And hopefully someday they'll create a robot that will come and, cook my food, and I'll just sit and it will bring me a drink. And when I want to clean my body, it will clean my body and do all the things that a human will do for me. So I don't know if that day will come before I leave this planet, but there you are. Because I'm a project manager, I would recommend 3 project management books to you. AI-Driven Project Management by Christian Bainey. Christian is a friend of mine. He's a fellow PMI volunteer and all that. It's a great book. I recommend that. I mentioned that project management is not a profession in the terms of classical professions, but it is a way of doing things, and it has a practice, and the best standards and best practices, so you should learn them. This project management practice guide, I have a copy, I use it in my work. And then forms, because I'm a lawyer, I love templates. I don't like to reinvent anything. So I would, if I have a new document or report to do, I like to look for an existing one and edit it. And that book has a lot of forms that you may find useful. So that said, let's switch from project management to other parts of life. This book, Influence on the Psychology of Persuasion, is mandatory reading. Mandatory, I'll say it 3 times. It's mandatory reading for anybody who wants to be successful. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care where you are today. You have to be able to know how to persuade people, how to relate with people. It connects to emotional intelligence. Get a copy of this one. Spend your money and buy this one, and read it and apply the lessons in it. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It's a good book. It explains how we think. And basically, he lays out a framework for how people make decisions and all that. Very interesting. Look for it in the library or look for a PDF version online. Don't spend money, because Daniel Kahneman has passed away, so he's not going to get royalty, So you'll notice that because I have a doctorate, I'm biased with people who are doctorates. The books I've recommended, these 2, Caldini and Kahneman, they are academics and practitioners, and Blind Spots is a great book. Spend money and buy that one. The authors are still alive. It tells us why we fail to do what is right. And as Nigerians, you know that part of what has afflicted our country is knowing what is right and then not doing it. And this book helps us to understand why, as human beings, we do that repeatedly. So I have homework for you, because you can't come to a class without getting homework. So my homework is this: carry an ambitious question with you each day and keep on looking for answers, because that is what will make you stand out and be different. So with that, I thank you very much. And this is how you can reach me. Again, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, tell me why I should connect with you. Otherwise, I will ignore it. So let me stop there.
Wow, this has been a I won't say mind blowing, but there are some sessions that when you attend, you just want to go back home and think and ask yourself what next actually. And this is basically how I feel. This is basically how I feel. After this session, I'm asking myself, what next? Bio, what next? What next? Thank you so much, sir. Do we have any other questions? Do you have any question? Any question? Of course, this session is recorded and it's live on YouTube. So anyone that would like to go through the recording, you can go through the recording without paying him any royalties. So it's good. Okay, I can see comments
have a
like,
question.
Okay, good. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you so much, sir. This has really been very insightful, and I've learned a lot. And while you were talking about the book, because I work in the library, I'm a librarian, so I quickly went to our catalog and I got the book. And the book is What Color Is Your Parachute? And I'm going to start reading it this night. So, sir, my question is, when you talked about communication, improving yourself, when you communicate, and I wouldn't say that it's been difficult for me, but for someone coming from Nigeria and we have our accent. So, what do you think can be a good tool for someone who wants to improve in their communication skills? How to interact with people who are not Nigerians, who are, live in Canada and is a diverse country. So, what's your tool on that, or any resource that can help one improve their diction? How you kind of how you play around with words that make your communication more good and suitable for business or interactions.
It's a great question. Let me give you the bad news first. If you leave your native country after the age of 7, the research shows that you can never get rid of your accent. The accents are set by the age of 6, 7, 8. So even though I speak, if I go to Lagos now, people think, oh, the guy is speaking with a funny North American accent. In Atlanta, if I'm in a meeting and I'm speaking, people know that I'm not a native Atlanta, I'm not a Georgia native, so to speak. But there's nobody who speaks English that doesn't understand what I say. So put that accent to the side. You can learn, and I'm not an expert in linguistics, but I got enough experience with it to say, what you want to do is develop your own voice and learn how to. So before I say that, communication is 2 things. It's saying and being understood. So if your accent, so you have to define what the problem you're trying to solve is, what I'm trying to tell you. If your accent is what is preventing people from understanding you, then identify why that is. Because just from what you said in the last 20 seconds that you spoke, I know that you have at least an 80,000 word vocabulary in English language. So it's not that you don't know English. So what is the problem with the that you're trying to solve? Okay, is it the accent? How can I speak more clearly? Do I want to speak more slowly? Do I want to speak with simpler words? There's a great book that I'm trying to think of the name of the author now, but he, and I will remember because I have a copy in my basement, where he lays out this framework that I'm talking about in terms of, okay, what is it that I want to say, and how can I say it so that the person I'm communicating with can understand me? There are people who, just to use a stereotype from Nigeria, there are people who come from Ekiti and they have a thick Ekiti accent and they live successfully here in Canada and all that. The third, so it's not, what I'm trying to say is don't try to get rid of your accent because you won't. You are both 7 years old, but you can improve the way you communicate. The other thing that we do, and I'm saying this because we're Nigerians, a lot of us don't speak good English. I'm sorry to say. If you read any Nigerian newspaper, it's full of bad grammar. We have created something called Nigerian English that's recognized by the Oxford dictionary writers. And we what the reason for it, let me explain. The reason for it is that we're actually thinking in our native tongue and translating to English as we speak in real time. That's what's causing it. So we make errors in terms of, frequently misused words. We make grammatical errors in terms of sentence structure and things like that. And the cure for that is to read for pleasure. I tell people, there are people who have master's degrees in whatever field you like, and I point out errors on their writing, in terms of sentence structure, tense, and all that. The only cure for it is to read more English, because what we do, unfortunately, is that we read the things that we need to read for our profession. So I'm an economist. I read economics textbooks. I don't read for pleasure. What do I mean? And I'm not talking of watching Friends on television. Read novels, read for pleasure, read nonfiction, read fiction, because what happens is over time, you read a variety of, and you work in a library, so you know this is true. You read a variety of books, you see how writers put words together and how they structure sentences. And do one other thing. People will think you are mad. Read it aloud. Reading aloud lets you understand language in a way that reading silently does not. The vocalization is important. And why do I know this? I know this from my personal experience. I was fortunate because, like I told you, I was brought up by a single mother. So I spent part of the time with my grandfather. And my grandfather was, at that time, he had failing eyesight. So he used to make me read his materials aloud, and he would correct me in terms of, diction, in terms of pronunciation, in terms of spelling and all that. But I recommend it even till today. And I do it when I can. You don't have to do it so that people think you're crazy, but if you practice this, and it doesn't take a long time, you will find that you learn the language, you learn facility with the language, which is actually what you need to be fluent. Many of us speak English, we can communicate in English, we write in English, but speaking, we're not confident because what we're actually doing is we're thinking in Igbo language and we're translating to English and we make errors. On that point, I'll tell you why thinking in one language and talking in another language is problematic. Many things are not directly translatable. We're in Canada. English language has one word for snow because snow is snow. It will soon start falling. Inuit language has 30 words for snow. 30. Because there are different kinds of snow. There's wet snow, there's dry snow, there's fluffy snow. They have different words for each of those. The point I'm trying to make is that language is a means of communication. So the cure for the question you're asking is develop greater facility with the language, and then the accent is not going to matter much more. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I will
Yes,
just take
sir.
one
Thank
more
you.
question.
I see Victor's hand is up.
Yes, so Victor, you'll be the last person. All right.
Yes, thank
Over
you
to you,
so
Victor.
much, sir. Thank you so much. And I like how you broke down the answer. It's so easy to understand and so easy to relate. And thank you for talking about the reading out loud. Something I'm going to try out and see how it helps me. So my question is on books, and something that you talked about a lot. I've been reading for a while, and these days I'm beginning to see myself have that between soft copies and getting physical books. I'd love to hear what you have to say about the two and which is better, which has worked better for you, physical books or getting the e-version, or maybe even ebooks. Your thoughts around this thing.
If I understood you correctly, you're asking whether I prefer ebooks to physical books. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I like them both. It's like, for me, whether you drink Courvoisier or you drink Michael's Brothers, brandy is brandy. Okay. Some people will tell you that, oh, Courvoisier is not brandy, it's cognac. Okay. So now you know that I have a favorite drink. The point I'm trying to make is that you have to use what is appropriate at a particular time. I like physical books. Like Mercy, I go to the library all the time. That's how I became a director of a library, because people know me there and all that. So I read books. I have physical books, but I also have an iPad, and I have a ton of Kindle books. I subscribe to Kindle. Amazon has a program where you get Kindle Unlimited, $10 a month or whatever. So sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll download some books I want to skim. And that's the other thing with books. I skim them. Hardly will you find, as I am now, I will hardly take a fiction book, one, two, even a non-fiction book, 300-400 pages to read it. I don't have time. So I'm going to skim it. I've developed a skill of, identifying what it is I want to learn from this book. I'm not just picking up a book because of, I like the cover. No, I'm picking up the book because I feel that from the title or the introduction or the back page or I've heard about it, that this author can teach me something. I'm looking for that thing. And once I find it, I drop the book and move on. So I don't really have a preference between physical books and ebooks. I use them both.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. All right. I'm sure today has been a good one. And, like I said, this is recorded and is also on our YouTube. So when I'm sending the presentation, I'm just going to put the link to that so that we can keep, watching or listening to it just to revitalize ourselves. Thank you so much, sir. Is there any...
You can see how much I love books. I have books in the virtual background.
Yeah. I see
that. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for coming and for your questions. See so many comments in the chat. I thank you all. I hope this has been useful. I hope that you go forward and chart your own course, and that you pay it forward. So in no distant time, I want to see you guys holding this kind of lecture and inviting me to come and learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir.
so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Bye.
Bye.